This is the Dr. Duke Show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show. I am Dr. Duke, and I am joined today by Vicki McKenna. Vicki, hi.
Hi.
We're
going to talk about really upbeat stuff today, right?
You know, this is the depression segment because this is a really bad series of stories. And, you know, if this kind of stuff that we're about to talk to you about does not change your mind that you need to get your kids out of the public schools, then I'm convinced that absolutely nothing ever will. Let's start in Germany because we know what happens in Europe ends up in California, and what ends up in California ends up in your school district. And we have German daycare centers. Unbelievably, several daycare centers in Germany are considering or have already implemented sexual exploration rooms where children can engage in sexual games and discover what they find pleasurable. We're talking kids as young as potentially preschool. Kids will have rooms in daycares where parents, the teachers don't go, where children can wander in there by themselves. 2, 3, 4 at a time can wander in there. They can take their clothes off. They can experiment. They can touch themselves. Ironically, one of the rules, Vicki, is no penetration. Now, there's going to be no adult in the room with them, but we're going to give it on the honor roll for an 8-year-old. No penetration, Vicki. This is in Germany.
I don't even know what to say. It's abuse. It's a crime. Any child who engages in this is committing an act of violence against another child. It is psychologically utterly destructive, and somehow this has become the norm, or at least they're trying to make it the norm. Not just sexualizing your kids by exposing them to sexual content, but now encouraging kids to grope each other, to sexually abuse each other, and normalizing that. I was reading a little bit more about this particular story. Parents, of course, were outraged, and until enough parents were willing to fight back, and it looked like things were going to go sideways, this daycare was willing to continue to go forward, and nobody in an official capacity wanted to speak out against this. I don't even know how much further into the sewer we can go, but here we are. I guess the further into the sewer is that an adult joins those children in the sexual exploration room. But to your point, what happens in Germany then comes to California. What happens in California then comes to Wisconsin. Wisconsin is already using an organization called SECUS. You and I talked about this on my radio program. And SECUS aims to promote sexual literacy to children. I mean, I should use that finger quote. Sexual literacy to children. Porn literacy is something that they have been talking about and strategizing right now. And the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction uses this organization to create its comprehensive sexual education curriculum. So in a way, maybe not is gag-inducing as the story out of Germany, but in a way it's already here, Duke. You've got teachers saying it's time to teach children porn literacy. And I was just reading an article written by a 16-year-old girl who won an essay contest who said, my first exposure to pornography, hardcore pornography, was at age 10. So we're normalizing deviance in a way that is going to be so destructive for relationships, for a sense of self, for mental health, and for the propagation of the family. And nobody seems to think this is worth, spending any amount of national attention on. And I don't understand that.
Well, it's not just that it's worth attention. This is seen as an aggregate good. Getting pornography, this is what Sika said, right? That porn is a wonderful way to express your emotions. It's unrealistic and therefore the basis of fantasy. All this is wonderful. And you mentioned the German authorities. It's worse than we thought. According to a number of reports, 2 different nurseries in the German state of North Rhine-Westphalia were doing this kind of stuff. When asked for comment by the German government, by the newspaper Die Welt, the North Rhine-Westphalia government said, quote, sexual behavior by children, could not be prevented in public schools, and said that they had no intention of contacting daycare centers. According to the newspaper, they made the argument that freedom to try out childish sex is normal and masturbation is normal and of great importance. So when you send your kids to daycare at age 7 or 9, this is mandatory stuff. This is more important than teaching them to read and write.
Well, and that's true. We had exposure of another Wisconsin DPI program that brought in Ibram X. Kendi, Robin DiAngelo, Bettina Love, some of the radicals of the CRT DEI movement, who said the purpose of education is not education, the purpose is revolution. That's the purpose. So when you have, this is teacher training in Wisconsin. When teachers are being trained in Wisconsin that teaching kids to read and do math is not the purpose of education, the purpose is revolution. Revolution on the left in Marxism explicitly demands a revolution of everything, every cultural institution, every taboo has to be broken down, including childhood sex and age of consent. So this is, you're wondering, well, geez, why doesn't anybody care about improving reading scores or math scores? Because that's not the purpose of education. We are paying trillions of dollars in the state of Wisconsin since 2014. $5.6 billion more dollars have poured into education as scores have continued to plummet. But we've hired more trans coordinators and people, approved by GLSEN and more DEI administrators. So you have to understand, mom and dad, K-12 public education isn't about what you think it's about. It's about revolution, and it's about a revolution of the whole. Every institution has to be inverted and destroyed. And that includes the institution of family, of parental rights, because if they can't get the kids separated from the core value system of the parent, and they're not likely to sustain a permanent revolution as they believe. By the way, now that you all know this, moms and dads, you're forgiven for not realizing this was going on in schools, but now that you all know it, it is your obligation to remove your kids and protect them from this environment. It's your obligation to protect your children from evil.
Well, and don't forget the Auburn University in Alabama, the dean who said just the other day, the purpose of universities today, the purpose of universities is DEI. That's the whole point. And as bad as that story is, Vicki, in Germany, we have one much closer here in the United States. It's from New York. And this is staggering. The Attorney General of New York, Mike has a picture of her, and the state's Commissioner of Education, that's Letitia James, the AG, and the Commissioner of Education is Betsy Rosa. It's stunning to me that you have women, potentially mothers, doing this. They released joint guidance across to all public schools in the state of New York this very month, warning schools, teachers that it is illegal to ban inappropriate sexual content. In the August 9th guidance that was sent around by these two women, the two state officials tell school districts that they cannot use a, quote, pretext of inappropriateness or lewdness to systematically remove diverse perspectives from the classrooms because it violates human rights laws in New York. Actually, what they're saying is this. The guidance suggests that the radical gay agenda is sanctioned by law and warns against, quote, prohibiting discussions related to lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, non-binary, and gender-expansive people or diverse family structures. So therefore, the argument, Vicki, is radical, dangerous kink is a natural thing if you're anything other but heterosexual. And so you heterosexuals no longer can get mad if there is radical anal intercourse or some of those nasty cards we saw from Planned Parenthood in Canada about the worst, most vile kinds of sex, including sex with feces and urine. This now is how they roll. And so you can't remove that stuff just because your little Christian heterosexuality, sexual sensibilities are offended. That would be a human rights violation.
Yeah, they're saying that. So there's a movement, and many people are probably aware of it, to remove pornographic books from school libraries, to put them behind, not even, in some cases, not even fully remove them, but put them behind a desk so that children cannot be accidentally exposed to them. We're talking books like Lawn Boy and Gender Queer. And there's a number of them that depict extremely graphic sexual behavior. In the case of, I believe it's Lawn Boy, it is extremely graphic sexual behavior, anal and oral sex being performed on an underage child by an adult male. And Letitia James and Betsy Rosa, or whatever her name is, are saying that you can't take those out of the school library. That pornography has to stay, because that's pro-gay pornography. That's pro-trans pornography. And so if it's up into including BDSM and other types of kink, it's A-OK. I want to go back to that. I'd referenced about a young girl who had written an essay, an award-winning essay. And I want to read, it was about pornography, about being exposed to pornography, and all of her friends being exposed to pornography when she was around 10 years old. That's fourth grade. She did some research and found that a recent study, this is a BBC study of 2,000 UK men aged 18 to 39, found that 71% of them had gagged, slapped, choked, or spat on their partner during sex, and nearly none of them asked for permission to do so. Where are they learning that? They're learning that through exposure to pornography. They're learning that through and that was something that we were worried about. Well, how do we keep kids off of Pornhub? And now we can't even worry about that, because Pornhub is in the school library at this point, at least depicted pictorially and in story. And if it goes as far as it possibly could go, we're back to where we started in this segment about Germany. Honestly, there is no way to protect your child from this environment, leaving your child in this environment. Fight back, take those school boards over, do what you need to do. But while you're doing it, take your child out of these environments. I received an email from a man who is very upset that his 10-year-old autistic daughter is being transitioned without his permission in the Green Bay School District. And the teachers began doing this to her. Mind you, she's on the spectrum, when she was 7 years old. And he's wondering what he can do about it. I said, take your child out of this environment. And he didn't want to take his child out of the environment. I'm thinking, how do you think you're going to fix this all by yourself, when it's not just one teacher, it's an entire institution and system that is in place, that is not controlled and will never accede control of itself to parents. I mean, moms and dads, you cannot stick your head back in the sand. You are putting your children at risk, and anything bad that happens to your children after you know this is going on is on you.
Yeah, that dad, with all due respect, Vicki, and I think you know this as well, that dad who reached out to you, he was not looking for an answer. He was not looking for an alternative. He wanted pity. He wanted sympathy. He wanted people acknowledge what was going on, but he did not want to make any sacrifice to protect his daughter. That's stunning to me. And as far as this New York guidance goes, listen to this. Along the same lines, the guidance adds that, quote, prohibiting a transgender, expansive, or non-binary person from using a single-gender extracurricular program is also illegal. So you can't keep men out of girls' sports. Also, the state officials even declare that it is illegal to require trans people to provide proof that they're undergoing any treatment. So you don't even have to have puberty blockers. You're a man, you want in the women's bathroom, that's it. You are not legally allowed to even ask them, how do we know, or what protocol are you doing to become a woman? I'll give you the last word.
New York is very bold. They're willing to actually put it on paper and admit this. Here in Wisconsin, you're not seeing anybody admit it. They're pretending it's not happening. And yet all across Wisconsin schools, and that includes your child's school, you have unwritten policies that permit the same thing. These books are in almost all schools in Wisconsin that we have been talking about. This pornography is in almost all schools, and the sensibility that children should be exposed to aggressive, inappropriate sexual information at the very youngest age is the policy. of Wisconsin DPI.
And understand this.
Take your kids out of these environments.
Just 2 or 3 years ago, Vicki, California and New York were pretending it wasn't happening. Now they're bragging it and threatening. You don't think that's going to be here in 2 years? You're right. Wisconsin is doing it surreptitiously in most cases. In 2 years, like New York and California, they will be doing it overtly, and they will be threatening you if you're not going along with this. And that's going to wrap up the show. If you enjoyed this program, please subscribe to our brand new podcast channel. Simply visit drdukeshow.com or search Dr. Duke Show on any of your favorite platforms and leave us that all-important 5-star review. For all of us at the Dr. Duke Show, including Vicki McKenna, I say thank you, and we'll see you next time.